One of the things about the HBCUs is most of the people who live in states that have HBCUs don't really understand how important they are. I saw how difficult it was. I went to Texas Southern undergrad, and I'm wondering, why do we have all these people from California coming to Texas Southern? They couldn't get into the universities in California. And even if they got in, the environment was not conducive to their learning. The civil rights experience that I went to was caused, all right, by legal segregation. It wasn't caused by anything else. It was legal segregation. Segregation now is individualized, all right? And it is a decision that's made by each individual and not a decision that's made collectively by the law. Litigation started in the late 30s, and the first big case was Thurgood sued the University of Maryland because the University of Maryland was segregated, which is why he went to Howard's law school even though he lived in Baltimore. And there's a series of cases that led up to Brown versus Board of Education. The biggest case was the Sweatt case, which establishes Texas Southern University. If there had never been a Sweatt, there never would have been a Brown. You have to understand, the first big case was a case called Gaines versus Missouri. Prior to that, if you were an African American and you lived in one of the segregated states, there was no place for you to go to get a law degree, a medical degree, or a PhD. So if you look back in the 40s and 50s, 30s, 40s, and 50s, the African American doctors, lawyers, PhDs all went to Ivy League schools, maybe Brooklyn Law School, but those were places where they could get admitted, and the states paid for them. Well, Gaines was the first time that the Supreme Court said that the states had to provide an opportunity for African Americans within the borders of their state. Unfortunately, when Gaines was waiting for his rehearing before the Supreme Court, he disappeared and was never seen again. But leading up to that, there were suits in Oklahoma and some other states. But the big suit was Sweatt versus Painter, which took place in Texas. Sweatt was a postman. He had gone to undergrad at Wiley College, which is in Marshall, Texas. He had done some graduate work at the University of Michigan. And Sweatt, with the support of Thurgood and the NAACP, attempted to enroll in the University of Texas Law School. He was denied. So the NAACP filed a lawsuit. The state asked the court for a continuance for the purpose of creating not just a law school, but a law school in the university that was equal to the University of Texas. So the suit was filed in the fall. Legislature met in the spring of '47, immediately passed a bill establishing some university for African Americans with a law school that would be equivalent to the University of Texas. They ended up selecting a private black school in Houston called Houston College for Negroes. Unfortunately, in the fall of 1947, they didn't have time to hire law faculty and build a law school with a law library. So the first year that the university was in operation, the law school was held in Austin. During the 47-48 year, they hired a law faculty, purchased library books, And in the fall of '48, they moved the law school on campus at Texas State University for Negroes. I think there were 5 students in that first year in Austin, but only one of them came to Houston. In 1950, the case finally made it to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court decided that even though the state of Texas had attempted to create a law school for African Americans equal to the one at the University of Texas, that they had failed. The University of Texas was 75 years old. At that point, Texas State University had only graduated 1 law student, and the University of Texas had thousands. That the reputation in the community of University of Texas was greater. So and the library was larger. So it's kind of difficult in 3 years to build something that's equivalent to something that's been in existence for 75 years. But it got what Thurgood wanted, and that was that if you're going to have a law school, or if you're going to have any kind of higher education experience for whites, you have to have the equivalent experience for African Americans. And because the state of Texas couldn't create it, then the Supreme Court said that the law school at University of Texas had to be integrated. And so they forced the state to admit Sweatt to the University of Texas. And that was in 1950. There was a division in the African American community in Houston. We got a law school, all right? We don't need to go to UT. We got a law school, let's take it. Others was like, no, this is just a way to keep us out of the University of Texas. So the African American community was split about whether to adopt Texas State University for Negroes or whether to ignore it. But fortunately, we ended up getting both. The HBCU allows an opportunity for African Americans to develop more fully in an environment which is conducive to their learning. You don't have to worry about racism when you're sitting in the classroom. You have to try to remove all the impediments that have a negative impact on a student's learning to make sure that the only thing they have to be concerned about is what they need to learn. The first time I met Thurgood, he invited myself and 6 other black law students to have lunch with him. Basically, what he said to us was that I want to talk to you about your responsibilities. He said, all of you are blessed. The mere fact that you're at this law school means that you're blessed. As a black person who has been blessed, and your responsibility to help people who are not as blessed as you are.